I'm going to start out with the parts of my palette that I think are most literal. And when you read his book, he will say, look at this part of your eye, look at this part of your skin, look at this part of your hair, and figure out what tones are in them. And I think taking it literally, like when you look at my hair, you see brown. And when you look at my second and third base, which are the darkest and lightest parts of my hair in particular, you will agree most likely that visually this is how it looks. If you look at my hair, the darkest part is what he described, I believe, as a coffee bean, and I've compared it to real coffee beans. It's pretty close. A coffee bean brown. It's not a warm brown. It's not a light brown, anything like that. It is a deep, almost black brown, but I would say it leans almost more purple than orange or something like that. It's a very coffee bean deep brown, and you can see it literally in the palette, in my hair. It's not hard to gather that this is a color I could use for many different types of accessories and it would work. Having a brown leather purse like this would go with everything, and it would go with my coloring. And also in the third base, you can tell, I think especially toward the top part of my head, you can tell that it is resonating with the lightest parts of my hair. I would say sometimes my hair looks almost more gray or foggy in certain lightings, and I think that's supported by this kind of taupe. He deemed it a mossy taupe, so there's a little bit of almost green in there, almost, but, and it's not it's not warmed up, it's not, a taupe with a hint of orange or a taupe with a hint of blue. It's very mossy taupe, I think was a good way to describe it. And you can agree, I think, looking at this, that I don't know if you can see it here maybe, but in the light, this is the lightest part of my hair. And the third, more, I would say, literal skin colored sort of deal color is my essence color. And this one was tricky. At first he picked sort of more of a yellowish tone. That just was a little bit too warm for me, and so he kept picking colors that added back a little tiny bit of pink, little tiny bit of brown, even to account for the depth and the darkness of my skin, because I'm not, fair skinned, but I'm not, my skin isn't extremely deep. It's very neutral, it's very in the middle and very ambiguous, I think. It's not peach, and it's not rose brown, but it's almost in the middle of peach and rose brown. It's very just in the middle of all three of those. Even this, I would say, if you had to pick, it would probably be more peach-ish, but still it doesn't give that kind of lightness and airiness or pop that a typical peach color would get. And even this ivory, it's very grounded almost. It's not bright. It's not going to be, you're not going to see someone wearing this color and be like, whoa, she's wearing white, even if it was a wedding dress, it wouldn't be that much. It's almost closer to yellow in real life, but it isn't that yellow because it does have those touches of pink, those touches of beige. So it's kind of hard to describe, but ideally this essence color sort of pulls all the tones of my skin together, makes me look healthy. I will try to attach a picture of me wearing an essence sweater so you can see the effect. Even with makeup involved, it does look very gentle and innocent and vulnerable, and it does flatter my skin tone. My dramatic color, everyone's dramatic color, is supposed to be the color of their veins. When I look at my veins, I do see sort of a brightened blue. My veins are, I don't know if it's just today or what's going on, but they do look pretty bright and I really doubt you'll be able to see that well on camera. I have no idea. But to me, they look pretty bright, and it's very hard to tell. But when you hold up, again, I don't know what effect this is going to have. Maybe I'll try to attach a better picture. But when you hold up this to my actual veins, I think it resonates. And most importantly, it also goes with the rest of my coloring. It's not a bright, bright blue that overwhelms my features. It's not too soft or light and delicate compared to the kind of dimensionality and depth of my colors and my features. It's vivid, it's saturated, it's deepened. Even the latest version is still kind of foggy. It's still almost as if it's in a fog, and I think that kind of resonates with my overall features. It's not, I don't have, bright eyes and even I don't have, stark, dark black hair. It's all sort of medium contrast. The same with my romantic. He recommends to pinch your finger, the tips of your fingers to find this color. And this one was a hard one for me because I felt the tips of my fingers were almost more of a raspberry, but when it came to actually picking these, it turned out differently. And I don't know, again, how these are showing up on camera, how these are resonating, but again, I do think it's true of these colors and of my coloring that it's deepened. Again, it's dark. Even this, I would say the closest I would get to a pink is barely a pink. It's called roasted pepper. It's almost like a goth coral or something. I don't know how to describe it. But again, it's hard not to sound pretentious when you're trying to describe, like, okay, that's just red, whatever. But this specificity is where it gets important. Now I'll move on to a major point of contention and a difficulty for those reading the book or for those who have not yet kind of done the painstaking work of training your eye to recognize colors or to kind of understand the very specific, almost annoying nuances of color theory, and that is the non-literal colors that in particular can come from brown eyes, especially dark brown eyes. And I think my eyes they're not like they're not the darkest brown eyes that I've ever seen, but they're not the lightest. They're not even like close to hazel or anything like that. They're just kind of a medium brown. When I hold these up near my eyes, you can say, okay, your eyes are not green and they're not purple. So how did this happen? But if you think about, first of all, if you think about color theory, you think about mixing colors. When you mix these together, you do get sort of a brown, and it's not a warm brown, it's not chocolate brown or anything like that. It's a very almost like a muddy pond brown, which is not a nice way to describe it for most people, but I kind of like the idea of like just being in like a murky pond, all mysterious, whatever. I'm going off. My point is, these technically, if you think of the way light reflects, light can reflect in a certain way off of my eyes that emphasizes these purple, these kind of warmer tones of the eye, and this is kind of as cool as my eye is going. This is as calm as my eye is going to go into like a for lack of a better word, a murky green. Most people that I've seen who have brown eyes get some combination of green and purple. It might even be a bright green and bright purple, and they have very intense brown eyes, or they might even have dark brown eyes, so their green and purple are just very deepened and very rich. And it just depends on the type of brown eye. There's even brown eyes that are almost more orange, and they might even get more of an orange as a tranquil. I've seen it here and there. It can happen sometimes, pretty rare. But or even a pink in there. So you just, for me, I'm thinking, you know, if you mix these two colors together, what do you get? And often when you mix purple and green, you will get brown. And I think this is best illustrated just when I wear these colors. You can see, I think, the way that this makes my eyes look versus this gives it a slightly different feel. It's not, you know, wow, amazing, but it goes with my eyes. And I'll try to attach some pictures as examples. One last thing that I left out about the eyes was my first base. Again, this one is pretty literal, but that's not a problem. I mean, it's just the truth. The ring around my eyes is pretty charcoal, as it's described. This last set of chips I'll show is my pastels, and David, when I saw him, said, don't do pastel. I mean, you don't really do pastels. You don't work, they don't work. I mean, this is as light and bright as it goes. Anything else, and it just doesn't look quite me. I need that darkness and intensity and depth, and most pastels just don't offer that. And to clarify where these are actually from, they're usually slightly you know, lighter versions of Your Energy and Tranquil. As you can see, they're kind of, you know, these blues and purples. So I think sometimes he does a pastel romantic. I also think it's related to my dramatic as well. Here there's like some blue that's pretty similar. So all of these together form a palette in which you could wear basically all these colors, and they kind of go with everything. There's a common thread in between all of the colors. All of my colors are pretty deep. They have that touch of gray or black. They're not bright, they're not light, and they're very neutral. They're not warm and they're not cool. They're just kind of balanced right in the middle of a spectrum of what that color in specific can be. I was also very enlightened by when he discarded some colors. Initially, he did have sort of like a warmer cranberry. As I said, he had a yellow essence, and he had a mauve, sort of just a light pink with, you know, some purple influence. And I was a little disappointed at first. I was like, oh, those are like my favorite colors to wear. Like, what's wrong with them? And he said, you know, there's nothing wrong with them. They're not bad. It's just that they don't go as well as these more neutral shades, that they're just a little bit too warm for me, and that in the context of the whole palette, it would look weird to have one warm color and then have the rest be neutral. It's good to have them all blended into each other, especially for a medium contrast archetype like Sunset Summer. He also gave me metals to go along with my palette, and basically said I can do whatever type of metal I want. All of these look sort of coppery, but it's not necessarily that he's suggesting I wear a lot of copper. It's just these metals in particular are the ones that communicate the textures and the patterns the most of what would go well with the rest of my palette and go well with the rest of me. And it's always some sort of burnished, never like too shiny or sparkly, sort of just like worn down almost metal that's not in your face, it's not shiny, it's just very old, even dusty looking, or things like that.